At 30 years old, Sarah Williams was diagnosed with cancer a year ago. She began the grueling process of chemotherapy, but the progression of her illness often kept her from going to work. Her boss showed no understanding of her condition and instead constantly pressured her, questioning her productivity at every opportunity. One day, in front of the entire office, her boss publicly scolded her and declared, "We can't keep someone this problematic on staff any longer." She was then fired on the spot. This incident turned Sarah's life upside down. Unable to afford her medical expenses and falling behind on rent, Sarah and her 10-year-old son, Ethan, were forced onto the streets. Sarah, a proud woman, had always resisted begging, but the sound of Ethan's trembling voice, from hunger and the hopelessness in his eyes, left her no choice. She found herself standing on a street corner, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Please help, my son is hungry." On a freezing November morning, Donald Trump was walking back to his hotel after a business meeting. Amid the city's noise and the bustling crowd, a frail woman sitting beneath a street lamp caught his attention. She was shivering in a thin coat, holding a small child wrapped in a torn blanket. The boy's face was pale, and his eyes were foggy from hunger and cold. Beside them was a cardboard sign with trembling letters that read, "Please help, my son is hungry." Trump stopped in his tracks. The crowd flowed around him, oblivious to the woman and child. But Trump couldn't look away. He saw both pain and a faint spark of hope in the woman's eyes. "No, these people cannot be ignored," he thought to himself. He approached them slowly, crouching down to speak to the woman. In a gentle but firm voice, he said, "Ma'am, I'm Donald Trump. How can I help you?" The woman lifted her head, her face flushed from the cold and streaked with tears. "Please, just a little food. My son is hungry. I don't need anything else," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Trump's eyes filled with emotion, though he tried to conceal it. "What's your name?" he asked. Sarah Williams," she replied, her voice so weak that Trump leaned closer to hear her. "Sarah, please tell me your story. How did you end up here?" Sarah's lips trembled, and tears began to stream down her face. "I have cancer," she said. "I was diagnosed a year ago, but the medical bills were so high that I lost everything. I was fired from my job. Nobody wants to hire someone who's sick. I thought I could manage on my own, but I couldn't. We lost our home and ended up on the streets." She paused, lowering her gaze to the ground. "I never wanted to beg, but my son, Ethan is hungry. I'm doing this for him. I have no other choice." Trump crouched beside Sarah and looked directly into her eyes. "Sarah," he said softly but resolutely, "even the strongest among us sometimes need help. That doesn't make you weak. You're fighting for your son, and that makes you an incredibly strong mother. But today, you don't have to fight this battle alone." Ethan, trembling, wrapped his hands tighter around the tattered blanket as 2 tears rolled down his cheeks. Unable to bear the sight, Trump turned to his bodyguard and said, "Get this boy some hot food and a blanket immediately. He can't stay cold for another minute." Ethan's face reflected both embarrassment and gratitude. "Mr. Trump, thank you," he said in a small, shaky voice. Trump smiled warmly, gently ruffling the boy's hair. "Ethan, you're a brave little guy, but you don't need to worry anymore. Your mother and you are getting out of this nightmare," he said. As Sarah continued to sob quietly, Trump paused in thought before adding, "Sarah, I promise you this is only the beginning. I will do whatever it takes to help you fight this illness. Today, I'm here to change your destiny. You're fighting to survive, and you will win this fight." Trump took out his phone and called his assistant, instructing her to arrange a hotel room and find a doctor immediately. Turning back to Sarah, he said, "Don't leave this spot. You're not alone anymore. Today marks a new beginning for you." Sarah, tears streaming down her face, looked at Trump with immense gratitude. "Mr. Trump," she said through her sobs, "will you really help us? I want my son to have a future, but I'm so scared." Trump gently held her hands, giving them a reassuring squeeze. "Sarah, don't be afraid. You're not alone anymore. A mother's courage can change the world, but sometimes even the strongest need someone by their side. Today, I am by your side. As the conversation unfolded, Sarah's despair began to give way to a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, a few passers-by noticed Trump's heartfelt gesture and witnessed the emotional moment. This scene marked a turning point, not only for Sarah, but for Trump as well. Trump arranged for Ethan to have a sandwich and a bowl of hot soup. As he watched the boy's trembling hands struggle to hold the warm bowl, Sarah's tears quietly streamed down her cheeks. Trump, deeply moved by the sight, paused for a moment and turned to Sarah. "No one should have to live like this. You're a fighter, Sarah, but you won't fight this battle alone anymore," he said. Sarah, overwhelmed by the kindest words she had heard in years, struggled to speak through her tears. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't even know me," Trump replied with conviction. "You don't need to know someone to do what's right. Your son needs a mother like you, and I'll do everything I can to help." As Ethan sipped the soup, his quiet sobs broke the stillness. Trump could hear the faint gasps as the boy tried to suppress his emotions. His small hands trembled as he clutched the bowl, the warmth offering temporary relief from the biting cold. Trump's heart ached deeply. The innocence of a child, forced to endure such a harsh life, made him think of his own grandchildren, always well-fed, secure, and warm. The stark contrast between their privileged lives and Ethan's suffering pierced through him. Trump looked into Sarah's eyes and saw the pain etched into her face, the loneliness and despair of a mother fighting a battle she could no longer win alone. He paused, reflecting, and silently asked himself, "If I don't step in, who will?" In that moment, Trump understood another mission in his life, not just to leave a legacy in business, but also to leave a mark on humanity. Trump immediately called his assistant and arranged for a hotel room for Sarah and Ethan. He also set up a hospital visit for the following day to begin Sarah's treatment, pledging to cover all the expenses through his foundation. Next, Trump shared Sarah's story through a widespread charity campaign. Within days, the campaign garnered overwhelming support, with thousands contributing to Sarah's medical treatment and recovery. Educational scholarships were organized for Ethan, and long-term housing options were secured for Sarah. Within a month, Sarah and Ethan's lives had taken a complete turn. Sarah had started her treatment, and Ethan was back in school, living in a safe, stable home. Trump, in an interview about the story, said, "It all started because I saw the fighting spirit of a woman who refused to give up." Sarah's story shows that changing one life can sometimes change an entire community. A year later, Sarah was well into her recovery, and Ethan stood alongside her at a charity event. Turning to Trump, Ethan said, "Thanks to you, my mom is alive. And one day, when I grow up, I'll help someone the way you helped us." Sarah, tears streaming down her face, added, "I am forever grateful to you. You changed my life and gave my son and me a future. I owe everything to your kindness." Trump, with his usual composed demeanor, smiled and said, "All I ask, Sarah, is that one day you pay it forward, help someone else, and keep the chain of kindness alive." Sarah and Ethan's story touched hearts and reminded the world of the power of empathy and the ripple effect of a single good deed. Those who heard their story couldn't hold back their tears, and it became a beacon of hope for millions around the globe. As Sarah and Ethan's story came to a close, their journey of resilience and hope left a lasting impression on everyone who heard it. It's a reminder that kindness and empathy can truly change lives. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Together, let's continue spreading hope and positivity to those who need it most.